Hi, it's me, and I've been waiting to get my hands on this one, Sony's latest, hideously expensive, potential masterpiece of a full-frame camera lens, their FE 50mm f1.2 G Master. This is Sony's 60th lens for their mirrorless E-mount camera system, and they have saved something special for the occasion, as this is the brightest aperture lens they've managed to produce so far. With an aperture of f1.2, that brings it in line with Canon and Nikon's latest flagship offerings, and I'll probably be making another video in the near future comparing all three of them. Anyway, this Sony lens will set you back an eye-watering £2,100 in the UK, or $2,000 US, a simply huge amount of money for a 50mm lens, but if it turns out to be the best on the Sony system, then, well, you simply have to pay for that privilege. And there's no denying that it would be an especially useful lens to spend the money on. Everyone loves a bright aperture 50mm lens. They can offer you some serious background separation, but their angle of view is wide enough that your backgrounds still play a really interesting role in your final image. These lenses are excellent for wedding photography, street photography, portrait work, well, just about everything really, and that bright aperture of f1.2 lets in about 33% more light than an f1.4 lens, giving your images a little boost, although the difference admittedly is not major. Let's take a look at this little monster's build quality first. It's rather big and feels just a little front heavy on your camera. Its body is mostly made of plastic, but it certainly feels very solid and tightly assembled. It weighs nearly 800 grams, or a little over 1.5 pounds, so it's a bit on the weighty side. The lens is advertised as being quite well weather sealed, and it does indeed have a slight weather sealing gasket on the rear mount. There are a lot of control points on this lens too, which is always really useful. It saves you having to fiddle around changing things in the camera's options menu. First comes the aperture ring, which can be set to click nice and confidently every third of a stop, or it can be set to turn smoothly, which yields some lovely smooth aperture changes when video making. We also get a manual focus switch and a couple of focus holder buttons on the side. Then comes a rubberized manual focus ring, which turns satisfyingly smoothly. As you can see here, the lens exhibits some moderate focus breathing, zooming in a fair bit as you focus more closely, and that can be a little annoying for video makers. Now, let's see about the autofocus system. It works quickly, accurately, and silently here. Pretty impressive for an f1.2 lens, although sometimes it goes the wrong way before finding your subject properly. The lens comes with a nice carry case and a very good quality hood, which is flocked on the inside, and it has a rubber trim on the outside edge. It has a 72mm filter thread size and does not have image stabilization. Overall, we're looking at wonderful build quality here, which really makes a difference. The lens is very enjoyable to handle and use out in the real world, and I'm especially impressed with its fast, silent autofocus system. Much more important though is the lens's image quality. Let's start by testing it on a full frame camera, my 42MP Sony a7R III. In-camera corrections are turned on. At f1.2 straight away, in the middle of the image, we see razor sharpness and excellent resolution. Let's take a look over in the corners. They look fantastically sharp also, although not quite as good as the middle, and there's just a touch of ghosting and colour fringing on contrasting edges, particularly in the very corners. You have to be really pixel peeping to spot that though. Stop down to f2 for full contrast to return in the corners as well as more brightness. This is a wonderful image quality. At f2.8 there's a minuscule further tiny improvement, and the lens stays this sharp down to about f11, where the effects of diffraction begin to have a softening effect, and at f16 the corners are noticeably softer, as you would expect. Overall, absolutely fantastic image quality on a full frame camera here, the best I've seen from a 50mm lens on the Sony system so far. And now, let's see how it performs on an APS-C camera, my little 24MP Sony a5100. As on a full frame camera, image quality really shines in the middle of the picture, straight from f1.2, looking virtually perfect. The corner image quality is noticeably softer now, but still very good indeed. f1.4 looks a little sharper there, f2 looks excellent, and f2.8 perfect. So it's a wonderful performance on an APS-C camera here, but you do need to stop the lens down just a little in order to get the sharpest possible quality in the image corners. Alright, let's look at distortion and vignetting now on a full frame camera. These images are taken with in-camera corrections turned off. We see some noticeable pincushion distortion being projected here, and at f1.2 the expected strong vignetting in the corners. Stop down to f2, f2.8 and f4 to see that vignetting alleviated, but it never completely goes away. So it's a slightly weaker performance than average here, but no alarming problems. The lens's minimum focus distance is 40 cm, a little bit closer than average for a 50mm lens. Close-up image quality is notably soft at f1.2, although contrast is still quite good. Stop down to f2 to see very good sharpness returning, and at f2.8 resolution is excellent again. Let's see how well the lens performs against bright light. It's a fairly good show here. Some rather broad flaring can be seen when bright lights are directly in the picture, but it's fairly translucent and not really bothersome at all, so that's encouraging to see. Let's take a look at chroma levels now. On this G Master lens, bright points of light in the corners don't really see any smearing, even at that maximum aperture, another fantastic thing to see. Let's zoom out and take a look at the lens's sunstar situation. You have to stop down to f8 or ideally f16 to get any kind of impressive sunstars here. Now let's see about this lens's bokeh, a vital factor for a lens with such a bright aperture. Everything looks lovely and soft here, as you would expect for a lens of this price, although as expected, you can see a little cat's eye shape to bokeh balls around the edges of the picture at the brightest apertures. However, at f1.2, as you can see here, longitudinal chromatic aberration is a little bit of an issue. We see some purple and green bokeh highlights before and after the plane of focus. Stop down to f2 and those colours are beginning to go away, and at f2.8 they are virtually gone. Overall, the Sony FE 50mm f1.2 G Master is pretty much everything you could dream about from one of the most modern, top-of-the-line and expensive 50mm optics currently available today. It is a complete and utter joy to handle. Razor sharp, with great image quality in almost every other field, and the best available autofocus system for such a lens. It's comforting to know that, nowadays, if you spend a huge amount of money on such a lens, you're pretty much guaranteed to get what you pay for. Well, unless it's a Zeiss lens, of course. Well, anyway, before I get in trouble by triggering any fanboys too hard, let's just wrap it all up by saying that this Sony lens, obviously, comes highly recommended. Thanks for watching everyone, I hope you enjoyed this review. I love putting these reviews together, but they are time consuming and sometimes costly, so if you'd like to support this channel and the work that I do, check out my Patreon page in the description. There you'll find all kinds of exclusive content for supporters. Ciao for now.